Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Precious metals are stupid. That is a direct quote from Dave Ramsey. And most of you who are familiar with Dave Ramsey, he gives pretty solid advice on how to get out of debt. And he celebrates when people make their way out of debt, and provides a very strong message for fiscal responsibility, personal responsibility. And I think it's a great message. I'm not as familiar with Dave Ramsey. I'm not a faithful listener, but I am familiar enough and have heard enough that I like his advice on fiscal responsibility in many cases. But there's a few areas where I disagree with him, and one of them profoundly is precious metals. Silver Fortune had posted a video recently on his latest attack on precious metals, and it seems like it's much more profound and pronounced this time around than it has been in the past. And I'm sure that probably advertisers, like we see many times, we see places like Goldline or Lear Capital, pay talk show hosts to advertise in a program, and he has probably been approached by those companies and has turned it down. And I think part of it because he doesn't have a complete understanding of precious metals, and that's saying it mildly. And so I went back and I was aware of his views on gold and silver from times that have gone past. He's made several statements about precious metals and reasons why he does not see them as wise financial ventures. And basically because he makes the first mistake of calling it an investment. And in past precious metals discussions, there's this one particular video on his YouTube channel that he talks about precious metals and talks about volatility. And he says that sometimes it's good to have volatility because in that way you can make the moves when it's on its way down, or so that when it goes back up again, you're coming out ahead. Sometimes volatility is good when it's talking about the asset classes that he subscribes to, certain things, stocks and the like. But the problem is those stocks and the rate of return on those, by and large, it's obvious the Dow has gone up quite a bit over the years. It's at all-time highs now. The economy is doing well, and that's fine and dandy. But those are investments. And he's also mentioned, that, so for him, the volatility in gold and silver is a bad thing, but the volatility in the stock market is a good thing. And he talks about gold and silver being total speculative assets as if there was nothing backing them. And it's fascinating in his prior discussions about gold and silver, how, you have trust and faith and speculation. Well, there's something to be said for faith and in a certain asset class, and in the fact and in terms of what he doesn't see with gold and silver is their track record throughout human history, not just modern history. He takes a look at gold and silver and picks apart particular time periods when gold was up to $2,000 an ounce, or when silver was up to $50 an ounce back in 2011. He looks at that and then takes that snapshot in time and then takes a look at where it is today, and look, it's lost all this money or whatever, what have you. But the thing is understanding a new way, an enlightened way of thinking about these precious metals. He's looking at it from it as an investment class, and they're not an investment class in terms of the the financial definition of investment. They are an investment in our personal futures as they preserve our wealth, but they're not an investment in terms of in a traditional sense, in terms of the financial world. And I think if people understood that, they would have a much different view of these precious metals. And I think it's quite apropos to discuss this now, because, you know, he's made these comments about how gold and silver don't make you money. And he's right about that. They're not about making you money. Gold and silver are about preserving your wealth. And it's about preserving your wealth in the long term. And it's based off of the strength of the dollar. And that's something else too, because in prior discussions he talks about how, you know, and he's rightfully discussed how paper money from other countries like the Iraqi dinar under Saddam Hussein has lost, you know, it was worthless after Saddam was overthrown. And the German mark in the 1920s, it became worthless after the new National Socialist regime came in under Chancellor Hitler in 1933. You know, but there's something to be said for fiat, and that is by government decree, where the faith in your paper money comes from as a currency. But it's but until that faith runs out, you know, it is used, and there's something to be said for that. Well, if that's the case, Dave Ramsey is missing a lot in terms of gold, especially in silver, because every major government around the world either contracts with or they themselves produce gold and silver coins. That's right. They produce them for collectors, and not only that, but in the terms of gold, and in many cases silver, as we've seen with Turkey and other nations, they are accumulating silver and gold for their central banks. Well, if they're going to spend the time and money to accumulate and mine gold and silver for their central banks, I guarantee you it's not a dead asset, and it is not stupid, as he says. And again, I say that with the utmost respect to Dave Ramsey, as a Silver Fortune had also mentioned in his video, because, you know, because he's got a lot of good advice in terms of fiscal responsibility. And by and large, I would follow his advice. Stay out of debt and don't even buy precious metals at a good buy. If you have faith in precious metals like I do, and what the purpose and understand the purpose thereof, there are times when you shouldn't buy precious metals, even when it's at a good deal, when you fully have the faith and understanding of what they serve throughout history, because it does have thousands of years of history backing it, not just, you know, from the early teens of the 20th century. In terms of the stock market or what have you, or picking apart certain periods of time where gold and silver have performed maybe badly based off of a designator of a price point in time, because there's more to precious metals than just the price. You know, I made a video talking about in the past about the difference between price and value, and I think that's important to consider here when accumulating these precious metals, because yes, the price may be low, but you know the value will remain the same in terms of the overall historical aspect of precious metals and understanding the purpose therein of these precious metals. And their purpose is simply to preserve your wealth, to act as that hedge against economic instability, both deflation and inflation. An unstable dollar, by and large, if you look at the track record for the adjusted inflation-adjusted charts over the last 100 years, you see both gold and silver have done exactly what they're supposed to do, regardless of the price. And I posted a video about that recently too, inspired by Mateo Man, and also based off my discussions of showing those charts before, on which is manipulated more, gold or silver. And that's another aspect too that I think Dave Ramsey neglects to see, and it's not just conspiratorial talk with regards to gold and silver's price being manipulated. There's a lot of paper gold and silver out there being traded, And a lot of the price reflection is based off of what's happening in the futures markets and the like. But because there's, and even with silver being as abundant as it is, and you know I've talked about that in prior videos, there's a heck of a lot more paper silver out there than the physical. And if they were to be cashed out from the paper and electronic versions of these precious metals, especially silver, I guarantee you the price would just skyrocket if there was ever a demand on the physical. But more than likely, those electronic assets, you know, typically get cashed out for, well, fiat. And so they understand that most people will never, you know, cash it in for the actual physical precious metals. They will typically, because when people make investments, quote, in those ETFs, it's a different manner form. It's essentially kind of like you know, gold-backed currency. But even back then in the day, you know, there was more notes that were representing the physical than there were to be cashed out. You know, but that's why having the physical. You know, there's an adage that we know here in the precious metals community: if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And that is the case. Now, Dave Ramsey, he doesn't own any precious metals, and he's fine with that. I think he has a gold watch. Well, that's okay. But the thing is that gold and silver are not stupid. They're misunderstood, and grossly so, by Mr. Ramsey. But they are not stupid. So post your thoughts below. And be encouraged in these times when there are low prices. Most of us, I think, understand that, you know, it provides an opportunity, not a disappointment for most of us. Post your thoughts below. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to y'all for watching, and encourage you to please rate, comment, and subscribe.